Understand and use equivalences between common fractions, decimals and percentages. When we talk about equivalence in fractions, decimals and percentages, we mean that the different symbols and numbers can represent the same value. The simplest of these is probably this: 1 whole equals 2 halves. We all know that there are 2 halves in 1 whole, don't we? So 1 whole and 2 halves are equivalent. 1 whole is equal to 2 halves. Now let's make 1 half into a percentage. When we work with converting fractions into percentages, it's useful to think of 100% being your 1 whole number. For example, a whole pizza would be 100% of the pizza. If you cut the pizza in half, then you'd have half of 100%, which would equal 50%. 1 half is the same as 50%. What about decimals? Halfway between 0 and 1 is 0.5. 0.5 is the same as a half and the same as 50%. What about 1/4? What's the equivalent percentage to 1/4? We know that 1 half is equivalent to 50%, and we also know that 1/4 is half of 1 half. So what is half of 50%? Half of 50 is 25. A quarter equals 25%. They're equivalent. Now what about making that into a decimal number? What would be half of 0.50? 0.25. A quarter equals 25% equals 0.25. A fraction is made up of 2 numbers, the numerator on the top, the denominator on the bottom. The denominator shows how many parts something is divided into. So what is a common denominator in fractions? It means that you can't add the pieces of the pizza together unless all the slices are the same size. For example, if you have 8 pizzas and they're all cut in half, you can add the halves together. But if some of them are missing slices of different sizes, you have to change your approach. Before you can add or subtract fractions of different sizes, the fractions need to be changed to have a common denominator. In other words, to make all the slices of pizza the same size. Look at this sum. 1/4 plus 2/4 equals. In this sum, as we have a common denominator, all we have to do is add the numerators together to get the correct answer. 1/4 plus 2/4 equals 3/4. We have a quarter slice of pizza plus 2/4 slices of a pizza, 3/4 in total. You can add the quarters together because they're the same size, and you know how many you've got. Now look at this sum. 1 half add 3/4. We can't simply add these together. We need a common denominator. Let's look at this calculation with our pieces of pizza. We have a half slice from one pizza and 3/4 from another. To add them together, we can see that we need to cut the half slice in half to give us 2/4. This means that our sum looks like this: 2/4 add 3/4. The common denominator is 4. We've made the number at the bottom of the fraction the same, which then enables us to add them together easily. The answer to this sum is 5/4. We know that 4/4 make a whole pizza, so the answer is really 1 whole pizza and a quarter slice, 1 1/4. Now imagine that you've seen a coat in the shop that you really like. It's £80, but a sign above the shop door says 25% off everything in store. Result. But how much does it make the coat? You'll probably use your calculator, but what's the sum you need to do? If there's 25% off everything in store, then everything will cost 100%, subtract 25%, equals 75% of its original cost. If your calculator has a percent key, then you can simply calculate this sum. £80 multiplied by 75% equals, but we could also convert the 75% into a decimal. Remember what we did before. 25% equals 0.25. So 75% would be 0.75. The sum you would need to do would be £80 multiplied by 0.75 equals £60. In this case, you could also have used 75% as an equivalent fraction. The calculation would have been, what is 3/4 of £80? The answer is the same. Now try some practice questions.